The night belongs to us. We will bathe in their blood and relish their screams.
This is going to be a different style of videos that I normally do because I want to showcase, basically I want to talk about the first website that we created for the project. Now, so there's a lot that went into this, loads of mistakes that took place, and eventually this website was never really used. Some money was invested in it, not a massive amount, but still, at the start of the project, this was a definite time sink. So I'll start by saying the reason behind the website turning out the way it did, or being the way it was, is because at the time, websites all look the same, in my opinion. They're all using this very I've forgotten the name of it now, like a Wix, or what's it called? I might be able to find out the name of it by just going back over here. Yeah, website Wix, something like that, which is basically, it's a drag and drop kind of website that it's got templates, and you add your image, you add your text. It's a scroll down thing. It's all very simplistic and very easy to do. A lot of the LARPs that I've seen for Vampire anyway have been using this style of website, and you can make them look really fancy and really nice with some good some good pictures and stuff like that. Now, don't forget as well, this, when we were doing this was before you had like AI generated artwork that you could get loads of art for free and stuff like that. Not to say we would have used that, because I know that it definitely screws over a lot of artists out there, but at the same time, there's people are able to get images now, which the kind of images they want for next to nothing. And if you don't have a budget, then, and you're trying to advertise your stuff, then that's a way of doing it. Is it the right thing? That's another topic. But so anyway, I'm not going to go into all of that. So when we created this website, I wanted to make it very original, stand out amongst the crowd, something that was that would actually get you hooked and invested into the game. If you had never played LARP before, you'd never heard of Vampire, there was stuff in here to attract people that were into history, people that like puzzle solving. All of that was all going to be onto this website. And also on the website, which was why we were getting it custom built, is we wanted a forum built into the website. We found out later, after multiple discussions with forum designers and stuff, this was actually something that wasn't really possible. It was, but it wasn't. So, but it was all learning curves, and I'll get into that in more detail as we go through this. But in a nutshell, the idea was that we were going to produce, and I might as well just showcase the website straight off the bat. So, right. So this was our website, okay? And you're probably looking at this going, well, it looks a bit, what the fuck, Mark? There's nothing on there. What do I do? And this was some of the feedback we got of people saying, what the fuck? This isn't normal, or it's very confusing and hard to understand, and all the rest of it. But the idea is that basically, as you scroll around this picture, these things that highlight will take you to basically like clips of audio of a hunter who's kind of, his family's been investigating Southampton over the generations, and this is kind of the information that they've that they've got. And in recent nights, something that's taken his family generations to get the information is all happening really quickly. And this was all tied into the actual main plot line for the game, because there's reasons why vampires haven't taken control of, correct myself, the Camarilla, the Anarchs, the Sabbat haven't taken control of Southampton for a large period of time, and there was reasons behind it, and that reason was all embedded into the plot line of the actual game, like the meta plot. It was all there, and this website was linking and giving subtle hints towards that meta plot. And so this website was all created based off of us having the big grand plan of what the game was going to be, how it was going to run over like 3 Chronicles, with time jumps in between, what the main bad guy was or bad guys, how the players were going to interact with the world. All of that was already thought out before the website was made, and then what it was about doing was trying to tie this website as much as possible into local history, because I love myself history. I love Southampton history. It's full of it. And so what I did is I went on a massive, great big history binge into Southampton, digging through old archives of information and stuff like that. And basically all of these pictures that you see here, all of these photos and stuff like that, we had to get taken. So everybody here in costume and all the rest of it, all these documents you see on the table, they're like legit not historical documents, of course, but they're all of the text that's on these is like 100% legit. Like these ones in the background here that you can't really make out, they are all of the dates of all of the hangings that took place in Southampton and how many hangings and why. And there was a very historical link to the last triple hanging that took place, and that tied into one of our characters in the game. We had this Toreador who got great satisfaction. Like her kink, her thing was that she would find a very, very loving relationship, and basically what they would do is they would mentally traumatize, mind fuck with one of the individuals in that relationship to basically kill the other one, and then after they've killed them, remove the kind of mind fucking thing, and then get great pleasure watching them being hanged for the murder. And that was how they were very sadistic, this individual Toreador that we had, and that's what they did. And we traced that back through history with particular hangings and stuff like this, to kind of tie into that character. So now the documents themselves, like these ones over here, I don't know if you can see what my mouse is doing, but these ones were all linked to that particular character, because they were first-hand accounts of strange things that took place, people acting completely out of character. Now granted, these are real events, so we've put a vampire spin on them, but what we've made sure when we were designing the game and stuff like that, is there was a rule that we had that it had to have at least 2 generations, I think it was 2 or 3 generation gap between when that event took place till now. So you wouldn't really have any living, or so you would have living relatives maybe of that, but it would be like your great granddad kind of thing. So and if anything was to cause offence to someone, like we've twisted something that's actually very personal to an individual family or something, and they've reached out to us, we would do everything we could to remove that from the website and remove that image from the game, etc., etc. So that was the kind of idea behind this. We wanted to use real world events, but at the same time we wanted to make sure that we did so as carefully as we could, so we didn't want to bring up somebody's past that was at the game, for example. It could happen, and cause upset. So anyway, also all the other images here, they were taken. We had a big photo shoot that we was required for this. All the props were custom built. When I say custom built props, I mean really it was just getting some wooden stakes and sharpening and dyeing them and stuff, and you know what I mean, is we got a load of stuff of this off Amazon, these books and stuff like that, they're all off Amazon. The hardest thing to get hold of was the phone, because I'm a stickler for details, right? In films I'm always pointing out things that aren't inaccurate and all that stuff, but the phone is because of the time period that we were setting the game in. Was set, well, it's not set in 2000, if you see what I mean. It was set when those kind of phones were about. So the idea was I had to go and beg and borrow to see if anybody had one of those old phones in their drawer somewhere. It was stuff like that. There's little things on here. Even this document down here, which I think I can click on and nothing's going to happen. Yeah, this was made up. It's a bit shit, and I could have done a little bit more to make this look prettier. But the idea is this is all the links to historical things that have happened in the city, and these are actually linked towards these buildings and stuff like this, and events and whatever it is. These are all linked towards certain individuals that were also big bad NPCs in the game that were residing in Southampton. So like I say, there were subtle ties to characters that if, let's say, I don't know, a year into the game, a player were to revisit this website and have a look through, they would actually start to see some of these things and go, that's what's it call it, or that actually, and yeah. And if they were to go digging onto Google and into some of the historical archives in Southampton and stuff like that, they could get clues to certain plots and locations, because the NPCs that we created in the game had locations in the game where they were, and players could find them. And if the players were smart and found them, and it was that particular NPC was, let's say, in Torpor or something like that, the players could quite easily get in there and do what they want. So we created everything in the game to be kind of I don't know, like living real, not real, but you know what I mean, like it was everything linked properly. So anyway, website. Sorry, I've just gone off on a massive one here, but anyway, so the idea was, as I say, this was supposed to entice players in and stuff like that, even little things like the flickering of the lights and stuff. I mean, come on. But anyway, so all of this had to be created. This photo shoot, this photo in the background here, this took so long to make because there was nothing like it. You couldn't just go online and go, I'll take that. So all of that had to be made. The photo shoot had to be done. Arranging the photo shoot, getting the makeup artist down there, getting everybody there on time and in character, and making sure there's facilities so that everybody can now go to the toilet, and timings with everybody. It was a lot of, it was not easy to do, that's for sure. And even with all the planning that went into it, it was still a lot of hiccups that took place. So anybody who's never done a photo shoot before, a la me at the time, there's a load of learnings from that. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go into the photo shoot stuff now. I'll go into that maybe into a later video to talk about if you are going to be doing social media stuff and creating images and all that kind of jazz, some of the pitfalls you can go into. But this was about the website. So let's just say getting that image in the background was really, really hard and took an awful lot of work. And I think it took us about 8 months to a year to get this website out. Because everything about this website was custom made, including the website itself. Like, it wasn't a drag and drop website. The guy who did this for me, he had to make all of this. Anyway, so right, so what happens now then? So if you click on Southampton Vampire by Night at the top here, it comes up with a game overview. Now, this was back in the day, so this is it's just before we had so many changes and stuff that took place. But the idea with all of this was it gave you links to our websites. So website gave you links to the Facebook group page, to the Patreon, contact information, questions and answers, that kind of stuff. There was a lot of information on here, but it was a bit basic. And it was a wall of text, and that's not advisable if you're making a website. And it was also, believe it or not, hard to find because the game overview was hidden behind Southampton Vampire by Night, name at the top here. It didn't exactly say game overview, so how did anybody know to click on it? So if you came onto this website and you had no idea what the fuck it was, you didn't even know it was a game at that point. So that was a mistake. That should have been game overview, or we should have had a page before coming onto this page. This should have been just like a, hey, do you want to go and investigate kind of page, not the website itself. It should have been an attachment to the website for people that wanted to get involved and get digging into the game world kind of thing. Could have come onto this and done this, and we should have had a separate style Wix website for all the game information, all the rest of it, which is what we kind of went down the road of later on. Anyway, so then the other thing is, as I say, when you click on the images, you can't...
My great-grandfather's investigation into Frederick Burden was a difficult one. He could not gain access to Frederick until the day of his execution, and only a brief conversation was had before he left for the gallows. It was to be the last triple hanging to take place, and my grandfather had noted a keen interest to watch the crowd that night. This lady my great-grandfather was hunting had a habit. She preyed on men and would take pleasure in watching them hang. Every case he recorded linked to men acting out of sorts, as if they were compelled to carry out this woman's bidding.
So yeah, that's our first introduction to Sam, who was our voice actor for the what was it, Samuel Poinder, who was the now generation of the Southampton Hunters, or Hunter family. And what he was talking about there was this document. Now, this document links into, once again, all of this is historically accurate, just with some changes to things to make it more vampire-esque. But basically, yeah, what we did is we linked that into an actual triple hanging that took place in Southampton, and we then linked that to the murder that took place as well, because of the hanging was due to that murder. And yeah, so that information there was all, as I say, legit. So then we did. See, this is another thing. You have to click off of the image, which is another thing that was annoying. So then we had things like these.
St. Michael's Church and other holy sites within Southampton are a bastion against the horrors that stalk the night. The holy ground protects us from evil, and it causes it great pain and suffering. If you feel you're being watched, if you feel a cold breath on your neck, then my advice to you is run. Run to holy ground. It is the only thing that will save your life.
So yeah, the image that we had here, we went on Fiverr. We got this guy that was able to make images kind of move. It was really bad at the time. This was, as I say, a long, reasonable time ago now. What was it, like 6-7 years ago when this was kind of done? So at that time, these images, or the what you want to call it, the software that was being done, or whoever it was that was doing this for me, we had a load of issues with these. So yeah, but anyway, so we picked the best ones, kind of thing.
I've been watching this building for some time. I believed it to be one of their meeting grounds. On the night this picture was taken, a flamboyant individual approached the security and after a brief exchange entered the building. No hard evidence at this stage if this is a meeting of vampires or not. If I could just get inside that building, I'd be able to once and for all prove their existence.
So this was an interesting one as well, because the building that's on their left here, we could have hired, and we were looking to hire it, and we'd already been into, like, I say, negotiations. We'd reached out and had kind of a rough idea for price and what was required and stuff like that. But that I thought it was kind of cool that this historical building that was linked to this image is also what the players would have then gone and actually played the game, and they would have been the vampires that were being talked to by those particular individuals, which would have been our security, and etc, etc. So I thought that was kind of cool. So I don't know if I want to go through all of these with you, because I don't know how much interest people are going to have to go through each and every one. If people are and they want to, that's fine, we can, but I'd have to make it as another one.
I had been following a suspicious-looking man that night. He'd been walking the alleyways around the old city walls. I decided, as I had a good vantage point, to take a picture. No sooner had the flash gone off, he was upon me. I clutched my cross and I thrust it into the monster's face. The Lord must have been watching over me that night, as the beast recoiled in fear and ran from the walls. Never witnessed such speed before, and no reference to it has been recorded in the family's archives. I was lucky to survive that encounter, and I will not make the same mistake again.
So this was our attempt at doing celerity, and I mean, in hindsight, we should have maybe got him going down the stairs. It would have been easier for him. You can see it, one of the images, when it comes round this one, he's kind of propelling himself up to try and get the speed. But anyway, yeah, it was, as I say, an attempt at celerity, and the idea of him being repelled is because this individual had the floor, which means that the site of holy, what do you want to call it, symbolic holy symbols and stuff, caused them, to repel in fear and stuff like that. So it was harping into a flaw in the game that characters could have taken. So this one's quite interesting. This is I'll let him talk.
I rounded the corner and quickly snapped a picture, but when my eyes adjusted, the entrance was empty and the noise had stopped. I thought it must have just been a cat. It wasn't until after I developed the film some months later that I saw for the first time a demon from my worst nightmares staring back at me. Nothing like this is in my father's journal or in the family's archives. It must have been able to hide itself from me, but not the camera. Nothing is making sense anymore.
So this is linking into the fact that Nosferatu, although they can use obfuscate to hide themselves from people's eyes and stuff like that, and camera footage, if you're directly watching the footage as a live feed, if they are recorded or captured on camera, then they can still be seen through obfuscate. So, because it's a mind-altering ability and not like I'm going to disappear in front of you Houdini style. So we wanted to kind of showcase that flaw in the discipline, but also I wanted to say, Lena, who's doing the Nosferatu here, hats off, because this area where we went to do this shoot at the time, I'd already scoped it and there was nothing really wrong, but on the night that we did the photo shoot, this was full of needles and other drug use implementation that we had to kind of move out, and Lena was still brave enough to go in and to get these shots. But as you can see, she's kind of hover kneeling and stuff like that. We don't really want to touch the floor, but yeah, that was an interesting photo shoot in particular. And then what else was there? This one, let's see, this is Lena again.
I captured this vampire's image several times before, but every time I developed it, the picture would contain no trace of the beast. I got this picture by chance when the only camera I had on me was the one on my phone. Something must have happened that night to allow me to capture its image. I've studied this picture over and over again. I've even returned to where it was taken. The shadows are just not right. Their position doesn't match up with anything in the area. But at first they moved and there must have been a tree or a bush waving in the wind, but the street has nary a plant to be seen. The only thing I'm gaining for these hunts is questions.
So this is Lena again, and this was a clever shoot. Well, I thought it was clever. Nobody picked up on it, but if you look, the shadow is going in the wrong direction from the light source. And once again here, the shadow is pulled up underneath her, and it shouldn't be doing that. It should be going in that direction. So this was some playing around with lights that night to try and get the shadows to be doing things they shouldn't be doing. And this was a nice blurred shot of the person that we got. This was a separate this isn't Lena, this was a separate shoot. But yeah, and we wanted to harp on this one with this was again the flaw that the clan has. This is Clan de Sombra, and we were trying to say about the whole, I think if I'm right, it was digital cameras that could capture their image, but analog, is it analog? Old school camera stuff like that, it didn't develop. I think, or it should have been the other way around, I'm not sure. But anyway, this was the idea behind that shoot as well. What else was there? Yeah, so right, so that gives you a rough idea of what the images are and the documents and stuff like that you could click on and get loads of information. And once again, they were either linking to the NPCs, they were linking to the factions that were going to be going into the city, which is where the players would have been part of, either the Sabbat or the Camarilla. So there were Sabbat and Camarilla kindred in those images that would have once again appeared at the games. And what else was there? So this was giving credit to the people that were involved in the creation of it. So photographers and website designer, makeup artist, stuff like that. We wanted to keep this part of the website so if people wanted to find out what we used or who we used, etc., they could go here and find all that information. But once again, not very easy to do when it's just that. Geocaching. So I'm really pissed that this never happened. I'd have really loved this. So we had a system in the game, or we were creating a system in the game to represent masquerade breaches. And masquerade breaches could take place in the game from various regions, but the main one would come about from overfeeding, or from a character who was basically taking a risky feed and gets caught or something goes wrong. There would be a masquerade breach that would take place in the game. And then what we would do is we would then create a geocache, and we would put in that geocache two things. One would be a hey, this is child friendly, kind of congratulations on finding a geocache, etc., explaining about what the game is, that kind of stuff, but child friendly kind of thing. And then we would make a very clear one that wasn't child friendly, which was game related, which would be to talk about what they found. So describing to the mortal what we're calling mortals, the general public here, describing to the general public what they are seeing at the scene of that geocache, and then giving them details of how they could report what they've seen onto our website. We were basically going to have like a little place people could come to, and they could describe what they found and all that, and post it up on there, and that would be a legit masquerade breach. If the general public were able to take the information and then wanted to or willing or whatever, posted it up on this thing, it would be 100% a masquerade breach for the players, which would have big ramifications. The players, on the other hand, if they got to the geocache first, they would be able to basically take the asset code number of that, and they could then alter the they could basically, what's the word for it, if they had the right influence, etc., right downtime action, they could cover up the masquerade breach. And by doing so, if a mortal was to report it, although it would still appear on our website and the general public would be given the thumbs up for doing it, and fantastic, it wouldn't have in-game ramifications because the player had gone out and dealt with it. So we wanted players to actually go out into the world around Southampton, or into the real world in Southampton, to basically do these kind of things, cover up masquerade breaches and stuff like that. Now, I know that in hindsight, it was a really bad idea because of the amount of work and what you were asking players to do. Could you imagine it if you turned up to a game with your character and then you mucked up that night, and then I turned around as a ref and said, well, I know you've travelled 2 hours to get here, but I've put a geocache in Southampton, and if you don't go deal with it, your character's in trouble. It's a bit harsh. So we did put mechanisms in the game so players could actually remove masquerade breaches without having to go to the actual scene itself. That was to do with international influence and stuff like that. But it was there was lots of things that we put in place, or were putting in place, to kind of cater for everybody's kind of play styles. But what we wanted to try and do with the geocaching was make it a means for people that have never LARPed before and were just interested in Southampton history and were interested kind of in vampires, maybe, I don't know, but just wanted to go out and have some fun geocaching. We were going to do that because I'd been doing geocaching stuff anyway, and I just thought, why not make it vampire? This also kind of linked us onto another idea we had for if we had they call it a pivot point. Somebody, I think it was my friend Mike or my friend Monkey, that turned around to me and said about pivot points in design and project management and stuff like this. And a pivot point is where you get to a point in the project where you go, do you know what, this isn't going to work, and you can pivot. And what you can do is you can utilize a lot of the things that you've already made and used and done to create a separate stroke new project. It's a point in the project where you go, I can't see this happening, so I'm going to pivot and try to rescue as much of this as possible. So we had a pivot, and that pivot was that if for any reason White Wolf, which is now Paradox stroke World of Darkness, were to come down on us for doing this and creating this game, because at the time Dark Pact and all of that lot weren't particularly well known. There was no real easy way to contact By Night Studios. There was definitely no easy way to contact World of Darkness. There was no big Discord channel. There was none of that. So we were creating this game using their IP, and we were going to charge people, and we were looking, it was going to be 100 player games and stuff like that. We'd seen what happened to Camarilla and other large groups, and we were very concerned. So we had a backup pivot point where we went, right, if they do come down on us and all the rest of it during this process, we can turn this around and we can remove all mention of, if you'll notice as well, we haven't mentioned in any part so far here La Sombra, Nosferatu, Camarilla, Anarchs, none of that. So at this stage in the project with this website, we could pivot and make it this completely separate from that IP. And what we were going to do is we were going to make this a like a ghost walk haunted tour thing of Southampton, but the idea being was that we would have, with permission from Southampton City Council, we would have these QRC code stickers that we would put around certain places and historical sites and stuff, and when you would go out there using like your phone, etc., you could scan the QRC code and it would then take you similar to what you've just seen here, but in a little bit more detail, like voice recordings or video recordings and stuff like that. Basically it was going to be something that we used to be able to utilize that. You would have to pay a certain fee for that particular evening. We would also have actors that would go out into the city during that night to hit some of those key locations. So when we saw someone scanning the stuff, we would do certain things with those characters. It was lots of subtle things like this, but the idea was we were going to do a haunted tour thing using all of this. That was the pivot. In some ways I regret that. Like, if I'd known a project was going to end up like it did, I really regret that we didn't pivot, because there was definitely a time that it was fucking close to doing so. And if we had have done, I think this would have actually, with what we had at the time, I think this would have been quite cool and reasonably popular post-COVID. Because don't forget as well, this project ended up going through COVID, and that's one of the other reasons why it came to an end. So all of this you're seeing here was kind of pre-COVID. So yeah, anyway, so geocaching, that was going to be a thing. I can go into more detail in a separate video about it, but I've kind of covered most of it, and I've probably been rambling now about this for quite some time. So if you're still watching this video, wow, thank you very much. Appreciate it. So anyway, so what we got to, so yeah, the website itself, as you can see from all of this, there was a lot that went into it, and it was wrong at like so many levels of wrong. There's a reason why websites, when you go onto them, are set out the way they are, and why Wix and all these other template, module, whatever you want to call it, add your pictures and stuff, websites are there, is because you as a user know how to use those websites. So when you go onto somebody's website, you automatically know how to navigate your way through it, so you can easily find the information that you're after, or skip all the stuff you're not interested, etc., because you've used that website hundreds of times in the past, but just for different companies. So for us to go completely into the other direction and go, well, we're going to be all like unique and whatever, meant that every single person who came to use this website went, I don't understand it. It don't make any sense. I don't get what's going on. And what we didn't do is to explain that in any way to anybody who turned up on this website. And what I should have done is just made a normal style website and had this as a side project to be something to be used for world building information for anybody who wanted to go digging, and this would have been a cool little thing to play with for someone after they understood what the fuck it is that they were looking at. So yeah, it's a massive mistake of this, and I don't know, and some of the guys even said this to me during the project. But I was so invested at that point with the photo shoots and this table shoot and all the rest of it. And the website designer we were having budget constraints because, the more complex you want to make something, the more it's going to cost. And at the time, we didn't have a GoFundMe or anything. This was all out of my pocket. So, in total, I mean, stab in the dark, I think the whole thing, everything you're seeing here, website, photo shoots and the rest of it, was pushing towards £1,000. I think I'd have to do some digging through the stuff, but I think with prop purchase, with the photo shoots, paying for the costume stuff that people wore that night, you know, the actual getting the photos done themselves, location, hiring out the pub that everybody used, and the website, of course, itself, and all the money that we spent on that. Yeah, I reckon it was close to $1,000, and that was before we had funding and stuff. And my idea was that we invest all this money now and we make this really cool thing, because what it's going to do is it's going to give us word of mouth. Like, people are going to look at this and go, wow, that's incredible. I think we had like 200 people look at this website. It's so disheartening. And it's because I made stupid mistakes by making a website like this. It looks cool and it is fun to play with, and there's loads of cool information on this, and it is good for digging and all the rest of it, but it's crap for introduction to the game. Especially when you click on this phone, this is how you found out how you could play the game, right?
Samuel Poindar, we invite you to meet with us. Your tales of vampires and shadows that stalk the streets of Southampton are intriguing. My children can't wait to hear more of your stories. They gather at my feet nightly, asking to know more about you and your fascinating hunts. Your bedtime stories would be such a treat. We can't wait to sink our teeth into them. We hope you can attend us one evening soon, and if not, Samuel, we will keep an eye on you and your work, and admire you from afar. With everlasting admiration, Luther.
So Luther was one of our other NPCs, but more of a not one of the mega ones. I say mega ones, not the meta plot NPC. He was a game court NPC. Another voice actor we used from Fiverr, this one. And the idea with this is, after you got that message, Samuel Poindar, the hunter, would say, hey, could you go check this out for me? And that's when you would hit the contact button, and then when you would email us, and we'd get back to you and give you the game information and all the rest of it. So yeah. So at this point, you still didn't know where the game was. There was a forum that we were going to add in, and the forum would have definitely had loads more information on it. But fuck me, we made it really hard for people to figure out how to play this game and what this game was. So yeah. But anyway, so, and annoyingly as well, you can't get back off this one. You have to hit. Here we go. So yeah. So that was the website. My advice would be, if you are making a website for your project, for your game, first of all, Google Drive is fantastic for storing all of the informations, all of the stuff you need. Like this, we had all of our stuff in folders, etc., etc. We had a little like scope of everything that was required, and yeah. So first of all, organize your assets before you go to the website itself. So your website, I would highly recommend going through and using one of those template drag and drop websites, because they're easy to use. You just need to have a load of text of information about your game, whatever text you want, just have it in text form. Then you want to have your links. If you've got links to Facebook, Instagram, all of that lot, contact information, have all that ready. Your imagery, just have whatever you can get, just whatever you can purchase stuff. You can make it yourself if you are going to use the free to use stuff. A lot of other people do use them. That's why I was saying at the very start of this, with the AI generated stuff, people can now create some really cool looking websites for virtually nothing, which is horrible, because it takes away work from those people that could have given those art and stuff like that towards those websites. But if you have zero budget, and you want to try and create a website to make you money, then that kind of stuff is really useful now for that. So basically my advice was to say, don't do what I did. Don't try and go change the tune. Don't try to do anything radically different. If you really want to go above and beyond and make your website stand out from a crowd, make some videos to go onto it. That's really cool because you add a personal touch at that point. Have a video of you talking about, explaining it, welcoming people to the website. Have it linked to your YouTube channel that you've created or whatever you want. But generally, just videos are really useful at certain stages to explain things to your audience. Your text, make sure you actually do spell check and all the rest of it and grammar check it properly. Don't make mistakes I did. Because when it's on the website, sometimes it's quite difficult, especially if you're not the person who created the website, to go around and edit it if you've left massive, great big grammatical errors and stuff like that. And in a nutshell, the website itself will, from my point of view, from someone who's been a consumer, I don't particularly utilize companies' websites. I don't go trawling for all of their pictures and all that kind of stuff. I normally go onto the website to find certain information. And then I go to that particular point, get that information, and I go. So, do websites generate sales? Yes, but I think you're going to get more bang for your buck by personal kind of, if you're able to do it, one-to-one, meaning if you had a Facebook group and someone made a post saying, hey, when's your next game, and then you as an organizer turned up and commented and say, hey, our next game is on this date, if you wanted to have any other questions at all, please don't hesitate to send us a message or anything like that will go way further than having a website, in my opinion. So websites are really cool. Get your information across. They are definitely a tool that is useful. But I wouldn't put too much stock in making the best, biggest, grandest website you possibly can. But anyway, so that was that. We did go to a second website. I'm very much aware this video is probably now definitely coming up to half an hour, if not more. So let's have a look. Where we got? So Surround to Vampire by Night, website Wix. So this is how we did the second website. What we were doing, we were looking through page by page, having the information about us on the landing page, and going from that into, the actual the code of conduct and all of that kind of stuff. This was it's a whole other video. I'll be going into this, but the code of conduct, for example, this took us a long time to create. This plus all of the other documents that went into it, because it says a lot about your game, if you see what I mean. But anyway, that's another thing. But yeah, and it was like, describes what is Vampire Larp. We had anyway, so the second website we were generating was basically taking all the lessons we learned from the first one and then, kind of making sure we weren't making all those same mistakes again. You know what I mean? It's it's one of those things that I'm just flicking through all of these. We've done the code of conduct. It's little things like, what is this? Description of each of the clans. We went as far as that. So yeah, as I say, you're God, I'm just looking back over this and thinking, Jesus, we were close with this website. Yeah. All of these would have been the text that we had. Remember I said about getting all that information together, all the text and all the rest of it? This was it. This is what our text was going to be, with all the fancy artwork and stuff in the background and all the rest of it. This is basically what a website will look like before you create it, if you see what I mean. It looked like this, just documents of text. Wow. Yeah. And it's interesting to see that, you know, we had it for all of them. I didn't realise, yeah. For me, this is the first time I've looked at this in 6 years. So, well, I say 6 years, 3 and a bit years. But yeah, this was going to be our links to YouTube videos, talking about the rules. And then here you go. This was the design. This was what's the landing page, where you would go from that, the tabs, what the tabs would be across the top, what each of the tabs would then have on it. So yeah, we had it all planned out. The links we were going to use, what links they were. Yeah, the second website was going to be a lot better. And as I say, it's all there, it's all ready. We just would have just got some images up together and populated the website. That would have been it. And then we would have linked back to that old website. This would have been something that we would have got redone and made into just a bit of fun for players to go into. But yeah, so as I say, I don't know how long I've been talking now, but I suspect it has been a while. So I'll try and wrap this up now, but hopefully you've all found this reasonably useful. It's a look into one of the massive mistakes that I made. I massively regret at the start of the project investing as much time as I did into that website. Especially at the very start of the project. It killed a lot of the guys that were working on the project at the time. I mean, a lot of that I did myself in, spare time, but it was still time that I could have spent doing other things, like the creating the game itself kind of thing. I don't know. It's just, yeah. So that was definitely one of those things. Don't try and reinvent the wheel. Do that later, when you're established, when you've got a brand name that everybody recognizes, when you've got a player base of, hundreds of people or whatever, then you can go, do you know what? We're going to do this really cool website that's very unique to us. And then you've already got your desired audience that are going to play with it. Yeah, don't try to change things up at the very start before you have your customer base. And always, always think of the customer. I mean, I thought I was, clearly not. But your number one priority when you're creating anything for your project, for your game, is how is this going to be used, and how is this going to be perceived or used by your audience, and your potential audience. And if take your knowledge of that system away, I mean, let's take your knowledge system away, get someone to have a play with it that has no idea what it is you're doing, and see how they react to it. That's so important. Literally getting like some real cold eyes reviews over what you're doing, and be very, very receptive to feedback. And trust me, it's all going to be negative. Whenever you ask for feedback over something, people will normally say, oh, it's great, but, and then you'll get like whatever negative feedback they want to give. But the thing is, if you take it, like I said it, as negative feedback, then you're always going to perceive it that way. If you take it as these are potential ways I can improve, which means that, going forwards, that person may have been the voice of 100 others. Well, those 100 other people now won't have that voice, if you see what I mean. They won't have that complaint because you've altered it, you've changed it, you've made it easier or better or whatever. Little things like, I thought the text was quite hard to make out because it's like yellow. Maybe if it was a black background with white text, it would be easy to read or something like that. Or, I suffer from colour blindness, and some of the colours you've used means that I can't see a lot of the stuff going on, or the volume of the videos was too low or too high, or the videos when they came up were really small and didn't fill the screen, or when I scrolled down your image stretched, and all of that feedback you want to get from doing some cold eyes reviews of your website before it goes live. Don't ask your development team to do the cold eyes reviews. Get your friends, family, get random people and just say, hey, do you mind just, having a look at this and telling me what you think, what you found. Don't skip that stage, because you may find out, like I did, that you launch your website, and then you get all of that feedback, and then your website designer will turn around and go, wow, it's going to cost you, because I've got to take the website down, and I've got to do this, and I've got to do that, and I've got to do this. It's probably going to cost you the same amount it cost me to make the website, to redo all it. So, try to avoid that. But anyway, so hopefully you guys have found this video informative. Sorry it's not the most interesting as regarding what's going on the screen and all the rest, but hopefully you've enjoyed it. So thank you very much, and I'll see you all again soon. Alright, bye.